Well, the extended PlayStation Network downtime, which is still down for many people, although it is slowly starting to come back online, should be a wake-up call to many of you that play video games. As someone that is a paid Sony customer, I'm like most of you out there, just kind of dumbfounded about what's actually gone on here. Now, look, this is obviously something that I feel like is a lot bigger than Sony has let on. I think Sony's trying to kind of play this down as just, routine networking downtime that they're, addressing right now. But unfortunately, this seems like a bigger issue. And even though services are slowly coming back online now, for me, they're still not 100%. I'm still having issues signing in. I'm still having issues launching games. And things like my PlayStation Portal, which is the add-on remote device, simply doesn't work right now. And a lot of networking features, a lot of networking services are just completely offline. All the customers out there that are playing games such as Minecraft, Fortnite, Roblox, Call of Duty, all these live service games that, are so good that so many people just play literally every single day, and I'm one of them. We've been basically locked out of our own systems and our own games that we purchased, and that is very, very unfortunate. So let's kind of talk about, what I think has happened here and why I'm so worried about this all digital future. If this isn't a wake-up call, for people to experience what life is going to be like, I don't really know what to tell you. And this is one of the reasons why I always advocate for physical media. So in my scenario, I was unable to launch any of the games on my dashboard. Now, admittedly, these are digital games. These were games that either don't have a physical copy right now, like Ninja Gaiden 2 Black is one of the games I'm playing, as well as Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which is a game that I received a code for, and various other games. I can't launch any of them, and this is simply because it needs to connect to Sony's online network to retrieve the licenses for those games. And if we can't do that, then it means I can't launch these games. Now, some people out there are going to tell me, well, it's easy, just set your console to the primary console. Unfortunately, I can't do that either because that also requires a connection to Sony's PlayStation Network. And if I try to make this console my primary console, that also requires a network connection. So you can see how reliant all of Sony's services are on their network, even if we're talking about a single player game. Now, I will say, if I did have physical versions of these games, that license is on the disc, which means that I can launch these games off disc and play them offline just fine. And if you do have that, that's fantastic. And this is one of the reasons why I really like to push the kind of physical media as the kind of the savior of video games going forward. But as we've seen, physical media is slowly but surely being phased out. We've seen it happen this year. We saw it happen last year. I would say, as far as something like Nintendo, the Nintendo Switch 2 obviously will, support physical media. But beyond that, it's going to be a wait and see approach. The same thing with the PlayStation 6. Now, I have heard stories that maybe the PS6 will have the add-on disk drive, but even the add-on disk drive isn't going to help in this scenario where online infrastructure is offline because you can't actually pair up your Blu-ray drive to your console because that also requires an internet connection. So the fact that these online services are so fragile and literally just completely kind of stops you dead in your tracks from playing your games is just astounding to me, and something really has to change. The bigger thing here also is that Sony hasn't really told us what happened here, and all they've said, is services are impacted and, there's some downtime right now, but they haven't come out and explained why this is. But I have a theory as to what I think this is, and I believe that this is, and this is only in my opinion, guys, this is not, I don't have any, supporting evidence, but I do think that this is a distributed denial of service attack or a DDoS attack, and simply because when I turn on my PlayStation 5, I can't see my profile. My profile says unavailable, and I can't access things like my trophies or, my games list or anything like that. But eventually, after maybe 10, 15 minutes, my profile will sign itself in. But this doesn't necessarily mean that I can launch my games. I still have the issue where if I try to reacquire my licenses or if I try to launch those games, it doesn't work. But eventually, if I just leave my PlayStation 5 running idle, maybe for, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes or something like that, I can launch into a game. And once I'm at that point, things are good. But it's still very, very much obvious that many of these online services or these network services aren't running correctly. And I think it's not because they're not running in the back end correctly. I think there's something in the middle that's stopping those requests from being sent to the back end. And that's where I believe that there is a very much coordinated denial of service that's been going on. And that gives me shades to the PlayStation hack from 2011, which is how things kind of all started out, right? The difficult part now with Sony is they really can't just say nothing about what's happened here. And I understand the reason why they haven't said anything. It's because you don't really want to let people know what your weak points are. You know, you don't want to say there was a denial of service attack, or there was a DDoS, or there was some type of exploit that was found, or something like that, right? And they have to be very, very careful about the information that they disclose. And I understand that. But we're in a situation now where people play a lot of live services games. They have subscriptions to games. They rely on, the PlayStation Network. They also are paid customers of the PlayStation Network. And as we've seen, the cost of PlayStation Network goes up every single year to a point where it's almost counterintuitive, to afford to pay for it, to play your online games. And they really have to say something. Unfortunately, I don't know if they will. They may come out and apologize for it. I also have heard people, asking for some type of, reimbursement of maybe some a week of PlayStation Network. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but it's just not a good look. Staying quiet about this is just not a good look. You have to come out and say something. You have to be proactive. You have to be on top of this. People are going to be pissed off with you, but they're still going to understand and listen to you and realize that yes, something has happened and you're on top of it, and you'll let us know when it's resolved. Right now, it was a situation where we just don't know how much time was needed until services came back online, and that's really the unfortunate part. So look, this was really just an off-the-cuff video. A lot of people wanted me to talk about this. I'm worried, guys, about the all-digital future. This is a taste of what happens when these fragile network services just go down. It takes the entire console with it. And I don't really know how you could be okay with something like that. Now, for me, I'm a little bit older than most people that are probably watching this. I'm in my 50s. And look, I think I've probably got a good 10, 15 years or so left, playing video games and kind of sticking around in the industry. But man, I feel for the younger generation of people growing up, having to deal with just absolute, garbage like this, dumpster fire type stuff like this. These days, it's all about microtransactions, DRM, online entitlements, licensing issues, all sorts of just weird and dumb shit that just affects your ability to play video games when you want. And look, we're at the mercy of the big hardware makers, to ensure that their networking services remain online forever. And can you really put your stock into that? I personally can't. So I think, my big takeaway here, guys, is continue to buy physical media. I know a lot of people say, I don't like it. It's just, it's too much clutter. It takes up too much space. But when you get yourself into a situation like this, it's just bound to be the really only solution that there is. So look, I'm a big fan of Nintendo for what they're doing, continuing on with physical media. Sony, seems like they're going to continue with it, but look, just buy physical games, guys. I think it's really the only solution. And this is really the reason why I talk about it so much on this channel. But look, I've rambled on long enough. Sony, if you're watching this, anyone at Sony that's involved, please do better. Let us know what's going on. And look, again, if you gave us, status updates every few hours or something like that, even if it was, we don't have any updates, as long as you're communicating, as long as you're telling your customers what's going on, what you're doing about it, where you are at, then it would have gone a lot smoother. But hey, you've got a lot of pissed off people that weren't able to play their games over the weekend, and you've just got a big mess on your hands. And look, the all digital future, guys, you got to love it. We're going to leave it here for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for listening to my rambles, and we will catch you in the next episode. Bye for now.